That the Salva Judum comprised people apart from, amongst the tribals, the chiefs, the Majis, as they are called, the chiefs, the Sarpanch, that is the village head, of the village council, the head of the village council and things like that. These were slightly better off sections of precisely the section which was at the receiving end of the Maoist land reform, and the land was expropriated. The Maoists have also been practicing very consciously a policy of organizing and keeping the poorest section of the tribals as the main constituency. So they followed, their class analysis as they believe. So there is bound to be division. So these divisions that you see among the tribals somewhere also approximate to that. That is one. And so I believe that there is a lot of truth to this, which our own fact-finding also showed, which has been substantiated by the Ministry of Rural Development Studies and many other studies, that there is some truth to that these divisions are result of, or the section that went over to Salva Judum or became part, instrumental, came from this. Integrated Action Plan is a Government of India plan to bring development to what they claimed was, now from 35 they've increased it to 60 most backward areas, amongst which more than half of, out of these 60, 40 to 42 happen to be those districts where they claim which are Naxalite infested. These are official terms, by the way. Naxalite infested or Naxalite affected or affected by Naxalite violence. These are the terms that are used. Very 19th century, But anyway, so this integrated action plan was an attempt at pushing enabling these districts to have access to funds that do not have to require going through the bureaucratic red tape. So the funds, once allocated, can be swiftly deployed and disbursed and employed, in these areas for whatever are the parameters that the Planning Commission had set for itself. Now the interesting thing is, and that's where India becomes so interesting, because every progressive legislation carries within it history of mysterious ways in which Indian bureaucracy moves or the Indian ruling classes operate. So they managed to subvert even the most progressive thing. Now the integrated action plan got subverted by the simple mechanism that the Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. P. Chidambaram, and his colleagues decided that instead of handing over supervisory power to the village council, which is what they ought to have done under India's 5th schedule, which says that in tribal areas, the Gram Sabhas or the village councils are the key. And they must be invested with powers. Okay? So that was the original proposal of the Planning Commission, that you must allow the village council to monitor and supervise the allocation and use of these funds, so that you have participation of the tribals, in creating the kind of things and ensuring that this money is put to best use. What Mr. Chidambaram and company did was just the opposite. They said that the district magistrate, a colonial, whether we'll get to meet some senior leader, and if so, who and when. So he said, but you were introduced to the GS yesterday. It didn't register. So GS, he said, yes, you met the General Secretary yesterday. We had been introduced to the General Secretary of the Communist Party of India, Maoist, and we didn't realize it because he looked no different from any of the tribals there. They were talking Gondi, the clothes were the same, the food that we ate was the same, there was no difference. It was very difficult for anyone to, unless they themselves said or spoke to us in Telugu or Hindi or whatever language, if they were from outside and had been living in those areas, we had no way of finding out who was who. The point I'm trying to make is that this organic unity is very important, and you can't belittle it. Please understand people who live and work. This is not like middle class activists who live from 8 to 8 in the night and they go back to the middle class homes. These are people who live there. The same kind of life, the same kind of food, the language is the same. And what have they, I mean, they have a remarkable, I mean, if Gondi language has survived today, it is because of the Maoist contribution. I mean, 25 different magazines in different tribal languages are brought out in the guerrilla zone. And these people are voracious. I mean, anybody who has time. I mean, I've tried to, I mean, this was one of my most important impressions of that area also. The point I'm trying to make is, therefore, what they brought in, how they were influenced. You know, Himanshu ji has this, Dr. B.D. Sharma has this beautiful expression. He said, it's not necessary that the Maoists are doing, teaching alone, the tribals. The tribals are also teaching Maoist things. So it's a two-way process. So who is influencing whom? How much they have influenced each other? That is something which still has to be, that story still remains to be told. That is as far as the tribal and as far as the Gautam is concerned. I think Gautam, the very fact that for six years, it wasn't that they went and issued a fiat or a decree and said that the Gautam would change. No, they did not do that. They could have done that. If it was just an armed band of hoodlums, motivated by something else and just blind to anything else, they would have gone and just imposed their diktat on the people. They didn't do it. They had a debate. This was being discussed widely in this whole society. So if it changed, right or wrong, where we stand is a different matter. But if it changed because they were able to persuade and bring about this change. You are right about one thing. Biodiversity of resistance that one talks about. Is there biodiversity of resistance inside the guerrilla zone? What is the guerrilla zone? Let's get that clear. The Maoists are very clear what a guerrilla zone is. Guerrilla zone is something where they don't have absolute control. It's still an area which is a contention between the state and them. And the control can shift also. So what it means that all kind of people with other political affiliations also live there. And the point I'm trying to make is that if today, at this juncture, these differences don't count for anything because the life experiences have brought them together, then how do we present? I mean, should there have been a biodiversity of resistance? That some socialist, I mean, Himanshu ji worked there. The Maoists didn't oust him. It's not the Maoists who removed him.
No, coming back to what she said, this is that the attitudes of, for example, PWP liberation.
I'm coming to that. Please understand that this was in the past. You are absolutely right. It carried on through 80s and 90s. I don't know of any case. I mean, I live in India and work there. I am not aware of any such killings of the kind that we saw in 80s and 90s. And we fought so hard against it and engaged all these parties against it. It is a thing of past. If MCC and PW were killing each other once upon a time, PW and liberation and MCC and liberation were killing, you are absolutely right. Is it taking place today? If it's not, why take it up? Can you cite examples, widespread use of these kind of killings?
Are there zones where different things exist, and that speaks to something of this past, right? There are zones of, for example, in Bengal, when they are still in not so much control. So Jharkhand party activists would be killed, right? And they are by no means, Congress.
No, look, BJP. I'm not here to say that the Maoists are saints and they're only carrying out saintly things, That's not my issue. Of course. I mean, when we argue against killing of informers, when we argue against killing of, say, Niyamat Ansari or Francis Enduvar or something, it doesn't mean that we ignore or are blind to those sides of it. Not at all. But we are also very careful in reminding people that please be also honest in terms of saying how widespread it is. Is it something that characterizes that entire movement? You come in talking about Lalgarh and the Jharkhand party. That there are two ways of looking at that issue. When I went in April 2009, that is before, 2 months before the crackdown began, this was, sorry, last year, 2010, in June. 2 months before that, it was very clear that there was, and the operations were going to start very soon. No sooner everybody knew it. I mean, you talk to the administration people, you talk to the police there, you talk to the tribals who were part of the PCPA, you talk to the Maoist cadre, everybody was aware that this war was coming. The operations were going to start. What were the differences that emerged between the ML groups there, between the Santosh Rana group and the Maoists? Santosh Rana group said that we should be allowed to participate in election along with the Jharkhand party, with whom they had formed a coalition. PCPA was the one which opposed it. Please understand, the PCPA entered into negotiations with the election commissioner, allowed elections to be held. They did not stop anybody from campaigning. But if their members themselves left and sided with those who were opposing the elections, I mean, you can't blame the Maoists alone for bringing that about. So I think there is a lot of, I mean, I don't want to go into these nitty-gritties, which probably have some many details and many layers that need to be uncovered before we arrive. Nor am I trying to say that the Maoists have not. In fact, one of the reasons why the Lalgarh movement has also weakened is the killing of the political activists, which was unacceptable and unjustified. That should not have happened, and that is one of the reasons why they have also weakened. So there is no attempt to whitewash what they're saying. But I think it's not as if the critiques or the Maoists are same-sided. I think they have a lot to explain and a lot of explaining to do, to which they are never opposed, precisely because they're not a strong force. What do they have to show the Indian people? Which corner of India have they become, have they expanded? Which corner of India have they shown and held out a promise and sparked our imagination? Tell me, why is it that people that amongst that and all the left forces, is the Maoists who are expanding more than any other left force? This is notwithstanding the respect for liberation, its work among the trade unions or the students, the work of New Democracy and other groups. But let's be also honest in presenting and admitting and acknowledging what they have contributed.
Thanks for your talk. I just wanted to follow up on that. One of the things that is mentioned is, so for example, Dr. Vinayak Singh's case is also a reflection of, I mean, they've been, like you correctly said, they've been going after people who are associated with various movements for a long time and continue to do so. But it is the example that they wanted, political statement that they wanted to make to the civil society who was getting more engaged in that. And I think Dr. Vinayak Singh happened to be one of the things. So that's sort of question number one. And also that relates to the fact that most of your talk was related to the recent